Go. Good to go.
Are we good?
Yep.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the first 2022 edition of the Daily Gooner Pod here on StreamYard. Joining you from the United States, I'm Raphael, and joining me from London, our regular Sam. You can see our Twitter handles below us. Welcome, Sam. Good to be back with you. Certainly a lot to discuss.
Absolutely. Life gets in the way, but we're back. We're ready to go. Kick off the new year. New
All right. The famous John Lennon line comes to mind. Life is what happens when you were making other plans. But we have a lot of Arsenal plans to discuss on this issue. Let's begin with the disappointment and some fury over the result yesterday. Disappointing 2-0 defeat to Liverpool in the second leg of the Carabao Cup semi. Denies Arsenal a chance to go to the final in that competition, but we'll also be covering some of the transfer rumors today of Vlahovic, Aubameyang out, Vlahovic in perhaps, Leno out, a midfielder in. Who might that be? Arthur. But we'll discuss that in a moment. Team size, this rash of cards that Arsenal seems to draw, justified or not. I think that's food for discussion. But Sam, let's go back to the result yesterday. Obviously, a lot of people are disappointed, especially after that very, very courageous 0-0 draw with 10 men for about 70 minutes up at Anfield the previous week. But I think for all of our optimism, for all of our hope, COVID finally caught up to this club yesterday.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate one because playing so well against 10 men with 10 men against Liverpool at Anfield, you thought, okay, get 11 men on the field, really push them back and get at them. And for the first 10, 15 minutes, I think that we done that. We wasn't really worried about Liverpool. I think they panicked a little bit as well. But unfortunately for us, Diego Jota turned up on the day and spoiled our party. And it's a lesson for this young squad. I'm going to look at it in a slightly more positive vein. I just think that it's a lesson for the young squad. They've got to that stage. They know that big clubs are going to be playing their best players in that aspect. So it's just a case now of just pushing forward. But I think as well with the Carabao Cup, was it at the top of our priorities? No. Did it then become a competition where we wanted to win? Absolutely. You get into the semi-final, you're going to want to progress to the final, aren't you? So I think for me, it was disappointing. You could tell that players were coming back from injury. I have to give props to Tomiyasu after what Arteta said also, saying that he saw that Cedric and Chambers were out and he offered to play, even though he's nowhere near match fitness. Unfortunately, that did tell for one of the goals, but this has been one of the top 5 right backs in the league this season. So I think he deserves a special mention for doing that because he didn't have to. He could have put the squad in the mire. But ultimately, it's a disappointment. The lack of fight was disappointment. But you'd expect your senior players to step up, and I don't think they did. Lacazette was very subpar and hiding out on the right wing. It's like he didn't want to play up against Van Dijk and Matip in the first half, and then when the other, I can't remember, Konate come on, it's that guy is big, powerful, and quick, and Lacazette just went, nah, sod that, I'm out.
It's funny you talk about senior players, but I'm running the lineup through my head, and there just weren't that many. I mean, this club just doesn't, with the starting 11, with Xhaka out, Partey's having to start on the bench. Um, there's just not a lot of senior players. Gabriel's there, White is there, but they're new players. Tierney actually played well. And you're talking about those first 15 minutes. He might have been the best player in those first 15 minutes. He was pushing the action. They were clearly trying to work up the left side, as you said. But Lacazette or not, it's kind of like he does it or he doesn't. I mean, we know Smith Rowe. It's funny, kind of odd that with this club, Emil Smith Rowe is now a senior player, strangely enough. And this was his first match back since his injuries, certainly in the new year. That's the nature of Arsenal right now. Again, the names that we talk about the core that we expect, but Aubameyang's not there. We'll talk about him in a moment. He may no longer be with this club in name only. Lacazette, we've talked about him going into the new year. Here's a guy who seems to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We don't know. It seems that his past this year, his future is somewhere else. So when we talk about the core, we're talking really about Partey and Xhaka as my players that came in from the previous year with any kind of seniority, and that's a very different story to tell. But let's use that to talk about the transfer window, because I think everybody who might be looking at us right now, everybody who's been following us, wants to know. I think we all want to know, who are they bringing in? It seems that they keep pushing players out. We're seeing rumors that El Neni might be going in this window. We know that Kolasinac is gone. Again, Deadwood keeps being cut adrift, but squad keeps getting smaller and smaller. And now they only have one competition. But they still, we know what it is. They need a striker. They need another midfielder. Let's start with the striker. I mean, we know the target. It's Dusan Vlahovic from Fiorentina. The only question is, can they get this deal across? And it seems the Italian press, this is a story, Sam. We've heard this time and again with, it seems, every window. Arsenal's looking at a player in Serie A, playing for an Italian club. Arsenal doesn't say anything. So the Italian press gets to run the story, and that's mediated through the English press, and it drives all of us crazy in Arsenal world.
Yeah, and it's one of them ones where the Italian press will always pick up the Italian side. The more recent report of Juventus putting a bid in, fair play if they do, but I don't think they're gonna fly with 35 million euros, which is about what, 28 million plus Kulusevski.
Mm-hmm.
Fiorentina are from what I see aren't interested in him, so I think that's going to be rejected flat out of hand. But for me, the real kicker this last couple of days was Juventus have already got a pre-contract agreement with him, and it's like, hold on a minute, buddy. First of all, that's illegal. Second of all, that would be classified as tapping up. Third, it's it's impossible to do with FIFA looking at agents payments, agents activity, and they're really going to go, oh yeah, Juventus, you've got a pre-agreement with somebody in 18 months' time, even though they're playing for one of your league domestic rivals. All right then, and just also to add on top of that, Juventus being looked at for doing dodgy deals. So you really think that they're going to agree an 18-month pre-contract agreement with Vlahovic and his agents? I don't know, just don't fly for me. And it's funny because we saw previously with Gabriel and Napoli when we was after him. More or less
Yes,
exactly the same
that
story
wonderful
come out.
phrase, special agreement, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's the same thing, and Italian media aren't stupid because they see Arsenal as a massive global fan base, gets triggered too easily. They'll go, "Oh, let's chuck out a couple of fake stories, and then we'll get our clicks, we'll get our revenue from the English. Thank you very much. See you later. Hook, line, sinker, done like a kipper."
Now, let's talk about the player. I mean, we get wrapped up in the mechanics of the transfer. Can they do it? Is it legal? Yada 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 yada. But Arsenal have zeroed in on this player, And you've taken a really good look at him analytically. You've looked at his statistics. You look at his video. Is there any question in your mind that, given the style of play that Mikel Arteta wants, that they're made the right, that they're locked in on the right player to
Yeah,
lead
I
them
think
forward?
yeah, I think so, 100%. I'd say the only downfall that I really see for Harvich, well, I say downfall, it's not really a downfall, it's just something that can be massively improved, is his link up play in tighter spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, he holds the ball well. And for a guy of that stature, he's got very good feet. So I think it's just a case of linking the play a little bit better. As you know, Arteta is very miraculous, um, very zoned into what he wants. And to get new players in, I think that he will look at it and get the player in, go, okay, this is how you play. This is how I want you to play within your style, and just to enhance his skill set a bit more. Um, so for me, Faharovic is if he moves to the Premier League, starts doing it there, he will be talked in the same breath as Haaland, and if he scores big goals and a lot of goals, this could potentially be somebody that you speak about for years and years.
And he fits everything about the profile. As you said, he's 21 years old. He's tall, right? So he can play with his head. He can play with his back to the goal. Um, when we started discussing him, I think one of the questions that came up with the critics are like, is he fast enough? Because the Italian league is not doesn't play with the same pace. But having looked at him, do you have any misgivings about his ability to adapt to the speed of the Prem?
See, I was of the same opinion that he's too slow. What are we doing? But having reviewed him and watched him extensively, he's deceptively quick. And the way that the Serie A is played is very much a chess game, so to speak. So I think with that, it's he he doesn't need to use it, but when he does use it, it kills defenses, especially over 5-10 yard bursts,
Mm-hmm.
because he uses his frame very well for a player of 21, and combine that with the pace that he actually has got, that's quite scary. Considering like you think some defenses in Serie A are seasoned pros, they're experienced, they're European Cup winners, and it's just mad how he bullies them all the time. Just literally, he gives them nightmares, and you see them adjusting their game to try and nullify him. But if they do it in one way, he'll just find another, and then they're readjusting their game again. So for me, if we can get him over the line, and I was saying to Ryan, like I think it might have been this week or last week, if we can buy him, I actually think that's a club defining move.
Again, it fits. He's, as you said, 21. Everybody that they bought this last window, I think, what Ben White's the oldest player, when he's 24 years old. This is a
Yeah.
young squad. They're building a young squad by on purpose, to grow together. Everything, as you said, all the parts just snap together with this gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think if we looking at it from a squad building point of view, it just makes absolute sense, and it ticks every box. This is one of the hottest properties on the planet right now. And it's also show Arsenal showing their ambition of where they want to go, because they could target other strikers that would probably appease people, but not to the same sort of caliber of what Vlahovic is. So if we're able to get him in, as I say, it's a club defining move. It's a case of this guy will lead our line for a long time. And you think when Henri come in, he took a little bit of time to adjust from Juve, took a bit of time to adjust, and then he exploded. And I think that'll be the same with Vlahovic.
Well, and adding to that, I mean, you raised an excellent point, which is that so many people are impatient right now. And you and I were talking about this before we came on the pod. So many people are saying, Arsenal needs to make a move. If they're not going to, every time we see a negative story like, oh, his agent wants too much money, or, there 2 days ago, Fiorentina's not going to sell, which is ridiculous because, if they wait, he goes in a free, they get nothing. And now they could get, perhaps a record transfer. And everybody's like, move on, move on, move on. And you made the point offside, and I'd like you to kind of talk about that more here. But Arsenal have discipline, and it worked out for them in the summer. They didn't get Tammy Abraham, but there are extenuating circumstances there. But other than him, they got who they wanted. And you've been saying this, and Ryan's been saying this. They're going for their A-list players. They're not settling for the B-list just to fill the roster. They want everybody to count and to be part of that movement going forward. They don't want to have to sign a guy now and then have to go back next window or two windows from now and replace him or upgrade from him. And so, and that's, I guess, one of the things that keeps me kind of sane as I'm watching the saga drag out is this is an A-list player, no question.
Mm.
I mean, is there any? But let's go down the line, Sam. I mean, I guess we don't need to flog Vlahovic anymore, but midfield as well. They seem to be very picky about who they want. It seems like it's Arthur right now, but is there anybody else who might be sitting on? A lot of people still say, Bruno Grimares. It's a short list.
Yeah, I think it is because obviously, you look at reports from probably about 2 weeks ago. Fabrizio Romano, he came out and said it's a 3-man list, but failed to name the third person. Ryan and I was having a conversation about this, and if you think back to probably about maybe December, there's a few reports of Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa. Because you've got to think Arteta worked with him when he was at Man City, and then obviously he moved off to Aston Villa. And I think that he's had a really rounded game at Villa now. So whether or not Arteta looks at him and goes, the rate that he's improved, he looks good. The games that I've seen him play, he's given me some proper Fernandinho vibes, and you think you put that next to Thomas Partey, that could work very well as a defensive block. And is he going to be expensive? I'm not too sure. But ultimately, if you were to ask me my opinion of who I wanted in midfield in this window, it would be Bruno Guimaraes, because that guy has got everything, and I've wanted him since we first got linked to him when really had a look over his game. He's he's a lot more mobile than Xhaka. He's got that bite. He's got that energy. He's got that passing range. He's somebody that just controls that midfield, and he's just got a bit of everything, and it's lovely to watch. So whether it be him at all or Douglas Luiz, it'll be interesting to see what way we go, because they're quite all similar players, and I think that he wants that box to box, but not to go in the box. Just somebody to have that shield around the 18-yard box of the opposition, and if he's able to get that alongside Thomas Partey, if teams are trying to break out, it makes it difficult for them. And if we pinch the ball up high, we've got attacking talent that will kill teams, especially if we get Vlahovic in as well.
Again, it just brings up a frustration. We're looking forward to Burnley. Let's move forward to, everything is in front of this club now. Everything now is the Prem, the 18 matches that remain. And if we look at the next half dozen matches, they all look very winnable if the squad is healthy, especially if the squad is bolstered. But looking at Burnley, suddenly here's this unexpected fly in the ointment. We're all expecting Thomas Partey. I think 24 hours ago, 26 hours ago, everybody's thrilled. Oh God, Thomas is back. He came back from AFCON. He's going to be there for Burnley. He comes on. He plays 10 minutes in the match, draws 2 yellows. There's 2 ways we can approach this, but let's stay with the Prem. At least for one match, because he's out for one match, because it's cumulative. It's not a straight red. But Arsenal's going to have to find a creative way to get past Burnley. Now, thankfully, they're at home. Is that correct? I
Yep.
think they've already played at Burnley.
Yeah. Yep. Well, Ryan and I will be there Sunday.
How do you see Mikel attacking that, though? When, again, he's back to Lukonga, it seems. He was working with Smith Rowe and with Odegaard in a midfield 3, kind of ahead of Lukonga. It seems his hand is forced. He's got to stick with that.
Yeah, I think that will probably be the case. And if you look at Burnley, they're not not exactly the most skilled teams in tracking runners from deep. They'll try and hit you hard and fast and aerial ball and just bombard you. But if you're able to get in between the lines, that really kills them. And if you're able to then get in between the lines and go wide and then cut in, it causes havoc for them. So I just hope we've got the players back fit that we require, because I wouldn't like to be throwing in some under 23s against Burnley. Um, but I think if we're gonna look at it, I I'm a bit torn because obviously we played a 4-1, but I'm torn whether we go back to the 4-2-3-1 and have Odegaard sitting next to Lukonga and put in Smith Rowe in as a 10, or vice versa, because that's a formation that works for us. Then we know the pattern of play, the style of play, and the system inside and out. But when it goes to a 4-1-4-1, it goes out the window a little bit. Um, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, but I definitely think it's going to be the same formation of players of Odegaard, Lukonga, and Smith Rowe in that way.
If he goes 4-2-3-1, who would you be more comfortable playing in the deeper role, in the Xhaka role?
I'd probably say with Odegaard because he's just got that more experience over
Mm,
Smith Rowe.
okay. But is he playing on a position? He seems to favor the right. That's going to move him to the left.
Yeah, but you've got to think that Lukonga does like to drift to the left also, so it's just a reverse.
Okay. Let's revisit that question. We talked about, Thomas getting 2 yellows very quickly. Um, we've talked about this. This came up with Xhaka talking about feeling that a lot of the reds and a lot of just the yellow cards he's received, just cards period, have come on reputation. And it seems, obviously I've got a biased eye, but it does seem that with this club, a lot of cards come very quickly. Where we see opponents foul and foul and foul and not draw cards, and we see like an Arsenal player commits a foul, and if there is no or very little benefit of the doubt. It's like if it's borderline, the card comes out.
Yeah,
Is the club
yeah,
finding a reputation, in your opinion?
yeah. I think it is, and this has been going on for seasons, but it's coming more to light now. Um, I've banged this drum for a very long time. Um, my friends in my football group chat take the mic to a certain extent, but I firmly believe that there is something there within the PGMOL, because you've got to think the David Luiz red card against Wolves was laughable. Some of the other red cards that we've had is laughable. Like, players can literally boot the living crap out of ours. Like McCarthy on Saka, nothing, didn't go VAR. Oh no, sorry, it did go VAR and they deemed it appropriate. It's like, well, how's that then? Um, but if we look at the Liverpool game, F- Fabinho in the middle, 6 fouls, no card. and then Thomas Partey on for 10 minutes, two tackles, two yellow cards and a red. It's just a bit of a joke, but I think as well what these referees need to be looking at is not everything is a yellow card now, because you only have to breathe on somebody and then flop to the floor, and it's a yellow card. It's taking the physical aspect of sport away from football, and that's a different conversation for a different day. But for me personally, I think that it's getting worse, and the PGMOL won't address it because they don't have to answer to anybody, so they get their mysterious holiday off a mystery benefactor. So I think there's corruption there, but I don't know.
If you're Mikel Arteta, how do you address this with your club?
I would be going to the FA and requesting not to have certain referees because if you look at Arsenal games, it's certain referees that are extremely card happy with us.
And it just seems to be the same ones, is it not?
Yeah, yeah, you can see the repeated pattern in them for me. But I'd seriously be looking at the FA and be like, no, no more, or put in a very strong complaint about referees. But
All right.
then again, just quickly, then again, you can say that across the league for certain referees against certain teams. It happens all the time because it's biased. But what I don't get is when referees that support the club that, say, for example, we play against, the referee is automatically going to have a bias towards the side that he supports. So it's stupid, but that's the referees association for you. There's no accountability.
All right. We've talked about possible transfers. Let's go kind of tip back in that direction. We talked about the striker possibility of bringing a striker in the next few days. Possibility of who are the midfield targets. Interesting story that bubbled up, just kind of erupted yesterday, that Arsenal were close to agreeing a deal with New England Revolution in the United States for their keeper Matt Turner, and coupled with that, a rumor that Newcastle is looking at a loan with obligation for Bernd Leno, hoping that he can be the backstop and help them stay up, and that obligation is contingent upon them staying up. They seem to fit too well together, though today, again, that story seems to have dropped off the radar. Is this a case where it just makes too much sense? I mean,
Yeah,
it's logical. I don't want to say it's happening, but it seems logical. Party involved seem to be. I think Turner would want to come, and we know Leno's dying to play.
yeah, it's a bit of a weird one because I must admit I don't know much about Matt Turner. I've done a quick bit of research on him yesterday, and by the looks of things, he's a very good shot stopper. Um, and American American journalists seem to rave about him, saying he's the most valuable person in the USA national team. So he he must have a good reputation if that's how people are perceiving him. Um, but I couldn't tell you anything about him, to be honest. Well, not much anyway. Um, but in regards to Leno, there's reports saying that Leno's desperate to leave this window because obviously he wants to play. You got to think. Sorry, 2 6. No, sorry about that. You've got to think that the World Cup's coming up, so Leno sitting as number 2 behind Ramsdale is doing him absolutely no favors, considering his spot in the German national team is theoretically up for grabs. So Newcastle would make a good logical move for him actually, considering that he would be the limelight because the amount of shots that Newcastle have per game, he'll be a busy boy, and if the national team are coming to look at him, and if they see the volume of shots to him, and he's obviously saving them, that's going to put him in good stead. Um, but in terms of the loan to obligation, that works for Arsenal because if if they were to get relegated, he's getting regular minutes, so that puts extra um pound signs on his transfer fee. Um, and if he was to keep them up, then we can set an amount that would probably be over market value because obviously they'd be desperate to keep him.
Hmm.
So for me, it makes a lot of sense. But again, it depends on us finding a replacement keeper, and with what 8 days, 9 days to go, it it'll be a bit of a weird one and a bit of a mad dash considering that there are other positions that we need to cover as well, and having goalkeeper added to that list is not going to be ideal. But having said that, we've got two very good keepers in the under 23s in Hine and Okonkwo. So it it's a difficult one because do you want to give them that opportunity to fight for that number two shirt, or do you want a bit of experience? And if you want a bit of experience, I don't know. Could look at poaching Ben Foster, maybe. Good friends with Ramsdale, but yeah, it's a hard one to call. There's options out there, but it's whether the club want to pull the trigger on that or give the under 23s a bit of a run out.
Well, all right. Kind of running this back to the beginning. It seems everything is now on the prem. No distractions. No impediments. Get the squad. It's a thin squad. Keep it healthy. Give it some more reinforcement in what's left of the window. Um, Burnley. It just seems like everything right now is focused on Burnley.
Yeah,
But let's talk about also the attacking. I mean, one thing that was a little distressing to me is it just seemed that they relied on Martinelli and they relied on Saka a lot, and they looked a little tired yesterday. Some of the youngsters look a little fatigued. They've had to play. The squad is thin. COVID thinned it more. Um, Taken away any rotation, and we look at the striker position. You know, Aubameyang's not available. Even if Afcon weren't over, he has just not been playing. Balogun is off on loan, so we're now down to Nketiah and Lacazette, and both of those. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Nketiah was we're in another top come February 1st. Uh,
yeah. Eddie's a bit of a weird one because obviously he's a player that has rejected numerous contract offers from Arsenal, yet we're still giving him minutes. Um, if you look at him, especially in the Liverpool game, it seems that he just wasn't there. He wasn't really that interested in making an inroad and making that much of an effort. Um, maybe his head is elsewhere in the Osman transfer negotiations. But if that is the case, then for me, I'd rather leave him on the bench and give minutes to Mika Beriev, the under 23 striker,
mm, wow. Huh.
because ultimately he's the one that's going to be with us long term. It can speed up his development in that respect. Um, but yeah, it's difficult because one injury to Lacazette, then you're stuck with Eddie and Nketiah, and do you really trust Eddie and Nketiah to lead the Arsenal line? Because I certainly don't. So somebody definitely needs to come in that striking position, and I pray to God it's for Halovic. But if it isn't, then I think we might be in a bit of trouble and scrambling for who we can get in. So I'd imagine the club has made contingency plans, but whether or not they're able to execute them again is difficult. But you've got to remember with Arsenal, everything happens in the last 10 to 7 days because clubs lower their demands because they're in dire straits and in need of money. So Arsenal are cash rich at the moment, so it's a case of seeing if we can take advantage.
And it does seem that we're in a game of liar's poker right now. I mean, people forget that's the nature of the January window. You know, I hate to make reference to a Tottenham program. But we saw this in All or Nothing, that famous or infamous discussion between Daniel Levy and Jose Mourinho when he was there, where they were discussing getting somebody in January window, and Daniel Levy just kind of looks at me and says, "Everything happens in the last few days, Jose. Don't even think about it." And we know that Arsene Wenger used to drive us crazy because he would. It seemed that he was. People would say he's being cheap, and he's being cheap. And what we've learned is it takes two to tango. And
Mm.
if the seller isn't ready to sell, you're not going to get your player.
No, exactly, and I think that's what people need to wake up and realize, because it's very easy to go on FIFA and buy a player, or go on Football Manager, go, okay, I'm expressing interest, I'll put a bid in, they knock that back, I'll put another bid in, they've knocked that back, okay, I'll pay over the odds. Real life doesn't work like that. There's a lot of negotiation that goes on, there's a lot of toing and froing, there's there's also agents that you've got to deal with, that they could be difficult. Club directors, you can set a meeting with them, want an answer, come away from that meeting wanting an answer. They may not respond to you for 3, 4 days. So what are you supposed to do in them 3, 4 days? Are you supposed to move on to somebody else because they're not getting back to you, or do you wait and go for your primary target? It's
Mhm.
it's a very complex thing to do for any director of sport. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of cogs, and it just simply just doesn't happen within the space of days. It's very rare that a deal will be done in like 2 days. And to say that everything should be sorted by now is ridiculous, because the club the club is not going to deviate away from their plan A signings just to appease the fans. Because even if we were to do that, we'd be stuck in another rut of bang average players on big wages that will have to move on in like 2, 3 years or pay off. We don't want El Nenes. We don't want Pablo Maris. We don't want the side Kolasinaches. You know what I mean? We want players that are gonna be hungry and kick us on. But if if some of the fans had access to Arsenal's transfers transfer spend, I'd hate to see the squad we'd have with some of them. Honestly,
Well, you'd need unlimited funds because you'd be chasing your mistakes every window. I mean,
yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
yeah. The club will probably be out of business within about 3 years if some fans had their way.
Right, right. So, okay, well, here we are. It is January 21st, and the we're just waiting to see. Again, we know who they're after. Can they make it happen? So again, we just hope that the next time we come in that there is positive news, and actually good news. I want to say positive. I want good. We want to see new players. So
Mm.
um, again, we'll just we're in the waiting game, as it seems we always are every window. So, but how do we finish? Let's say this. Let's say they get their two players. Let's say they get their
Mm.
striker. Let's say they find a midfielder, whether it's on loan or with obligation, loan, however. They get a midfielder. They add some ranks. They get the striker they want. I have to think, looking at the difficulty that Chelsea's having, that West Ham's having, that um, Man United's having. We saw Spurs get a miracle result against Leicester City, but they still have a lot of games in hand to make up. They're a small squad. There's an opportunity for Arsenal, and maybe not just one slot in the top four. We're all assuming, oh, let's fight West Ham for that fourth spot. Chelsea's wobbling. There may be two spots up for grabs right now.
Yeah, well, if we win our all of our game in hands, we go level on points with Chelsea. So we've taken the same amount of points as them since the first 3 games of the season. No, after the first 3 games of the season. Sorry. So for us, if we were able to go level on points with them, that'll put them right in the mire, and I think we could potentially snatch third. But I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. Fourth will do me nicely. It's just a case now that we need to add some bodies, keep it game by game, I would actually like to see some of the youth players get a run out in some of the league games. If even if it's the last 10 minutes, people like Amari Hutchison, because that guy is going to be, in my opinion, is going to be the next. I know it's saying next player already, but it's going to be the next Saka in terms of breakout. I firmly believe he's that good, and I'm following him very very closely, and I suggest others to do that also. But I think in terms of the league, we just need to be consistent, and as a fan base, not to lose our shit if there's a draw or a loss. Just get behind the boys. They're gonna need us as a 12th man to get them through the rest of the season. And I firmly believe that we will get top four if we're consistent.
All right, and let's wrap it up this week because it looks like we're getting injury time on this pod. But result from this weekend, I'm gonna go first because I always like to defer to you guys and you and Ryan. But and then I watch my result kind of snatch in the air. I'm I'm a little wary of their lack of finishing, but I'm gonna say they're at home. They're even with a depleted squad, they're better than Burnley. I'm gonna say 1-0. Just sweaty, ugly. When they play Burnley, these are never pretty matches. They're taffy pulls, and I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
they'll grind out a result. They'll find a way to get one across the line.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna go the polar opposite. I'm thinking we're gonna slap them 5-1.
Okay, I like it.
Uh,
I like your optimism. I hope you're the when we come back, you're the right one, and you can crow about it. But
yeah, I'm gonna say a Martinelli hat trick, Laka and Smith Rowe.
Smith Rowe. Okay, those are good. Those are good people to choose. All right. On that optimistic note, we're both picking wins. We're both picking wins. Welcome to Daily Gooner Pod on StreamYard. Hope to see you here again in the next week, and hopefully we'll have our man Ryan back and other guests and build the pod back out where it needs to be. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for joining us here on the various platforms wherever you find us. For Sam, I am Raphael, and this Friday evening we bid you adieu.
Take care.
Okay.